Hello, JustProfessor here. You didn't see it coming. Nobody did. But the second it happened, you instantly convinced yourself you knew it all along. Your brain just rewrote your memories to make you look smarter, and you have no idea it even happened. Think about the last time something big happened. Maybe a company went out of business, or a couple you knew broke up, or a celebrity got canceled, or some major news event unfolded. After it happened, you probably thought to yourself, "Yeah, I could see that coming," or "I'm not surprised at all," or "There were so many signs." But here's the truth. You didn't actually predict it. You just think you did because your brain is playing tricks on you. The moment something becomes reality, your brain rewrites the past to make it seem obvious. This is hindsight bias, and it's making you remember things that never happened. Hindsight bias is when you look back at events after they've happened and convince yourself they were predictable, even when they weren't. It's also called the "I knew it all along" phenomenon. Once you know the outcome of something, your brain makes that outcome seem way more obvious and inevitable than it actually was before it happened. The really messed up part is that this isn't just you being arrogant or making excuses. Your brain is literally changing your memories. You're not lying when you say you saw it coming. You genuinely believe you predicted it. But you didn't. Your brain is rewriting history in real time, and you can't tell the difference between your real predictions and your fake after-the-fact memories. This creates massive problems. It makes you overconfident in your ability to predict the future. It makes you judge other people unfairly for not seeing things coming. It prevents you from learning from mistakes because you think you already knew better. And it makes you terrible at understanding why things actually happened, because you replace the real, messy, complicated reasons with a clean, simple story that makes everything seem obvious. Let me show you how this works with a real example. Before the 2008 financial crisis, almost nobody saw it coming. Sure, there were a few people warning about problems, but the vast majority of experts, investors, economists, and regular people had no idea the economy was about to collapse. But after it happened, suddenly everyone said they saw the signs. People claimed they predicted it. Looking back, they could point to all these warning signals that seemed obvious in retrospect. But here's the thing. Those warning signals were always there. The economy always has warning signals. There are always people predicting doom. Before 2008, there were people predicting crashes that never happened. There were people pointing to problems that turned out fine. But once the crash actually occurred, people's memories shifted. They remembered the warnings that turned out to be right and forgot about all the warnings that were wrong. They remembered their moments of doubt and forgot their moments of confidence. Their brains rewrote the story to make the crash seem predictable. This happens with sports all the time. A team loses a championship game and immediately everyone says they knew that team would choke. They point to regular season games where the team struggled. They talk about how the coach made bad decisions all year. But before the game, tons of those same people were predicting that team would win. They were excited and confident. But after the loss, their brains erase those predictions and replace them with fake memories of seeing the loss coming. Relationships do this too. After a couple breaks up, their friends always say they saw it coming. They talk about how the couple wasn't right for each other, how there were problems from the start, how they never thought it would last. But while the couple was together, those same friends were happy for them and thought they were great together. The breakup changes how people remember the entire relationship. What seemed like minor normal couple stuff at the time becomes major red flags in hindsight. Elections are another perfect example. After someone wins an election, political analysts explain exactly why it was obvious they would win. They point to polls, campaign strategies, demographic trends. Everything lines up perfectly to explain the outcome. But before the election, those same analysts were often uncertain or predicting different results. Once the winner is decided, everyone's memory shifts to make that outcome seem inevitable. Business failures get this treatment constantly. When a startup goes under or a big company collapses, people come out saying they always knew it wouldn't work. They point to flaws in the business model, problems with leadership, warning signs in the market. But before the failure, many of those same people were praising the company or at least not predicting its demise. The failure makes the reasons for failure seem obvious, even though they weren't obvious before. Medical diagnoses work this way too. After a patient is diagnosed with something, doctors often look back at symptoms and think, that was clearly indicating this condition. But before the diagnosis, those same symptoms could have indicated 50 different things. The symptoms only seem obviously connected to the diagnosis after you know what the diagnosis is. This can make doctors overly confident and can also make them judge other doctors harshly for missing diagnoses that only seem obvious in hindsight. Investment decisions are brutal for this. After a stock crashes, everyone talks about how overvalued it was and how the crash was inevitable. After a stock soars, everyone talks about how obviously undervalued it was. But if it was so obvious, why didn't everyone see it beforehand? The truth is, most investment outcomes are uncertain and depend on tons of unpredictable factors. But hindsight bias makes every outcome seem like it could have been predicted. This bias makes you really bad at learning from experience. Let's say you made a decision that turned out badly. When you look back on it, your brain makes it seem like you should have known better, like the right answer was obvious. So you beat yourself up for making a stupid choice. But actually, with the information you had at the time, maybe your choice was reasonable. Maybe the bad outcome was just bad luck or unexpected circumstances. But hindsight bias prevents you from seeing that. It makes you think you were dumb when really you just got unlucky. Or the opposite happens. You make a decision that turns out great, and hindsight bias makes you think you're a genius who saw it all coming. So you get overconfident. You start making riskier decisions because you think you're really good at predicting outcomes. But maybe your first success was just luck. Hindsight bias stops you from recognizing that, so you don't learn the right lessons. Teachers fall into this trap when grading essays or assignments. After they know what grade they want to give, suddenly the reasons for that grade seem obvious. They can point to specific problems or strengths that justify the grade. But if they graded the same paper without knowing what grade they were going to give, they might see it differently. The decision affects how they remember the evidence, not the other way around. Hindsight bias makes you judge other people unfairly, too. When someone makes a mistake, you think, how could they not see that coming? It was so obvious. But it wasn't obvious to you either before it happened. You only think it was obvious because you know how things turned out. This makes you less sympathetic, more judgmental, and less able to understand why people make the choices they make. So how do you fight hindsight bias? How do you remember what you actually thought before you knew the outcome? First, write things down. Before something happens, before the big game, before the election, before the business decision, before whatever, write down your actual prediction. Be specific. Then, after the outcome, look back at what you wrote. You'll be shocked at how different your written prediction is from what you remember predicting. This is the most effective way to catch hindsight bias in action, because you have proof of what you really thought. Second, actively remember your uncertainty. When looking back at past events, force yourself to recall how uncertain things felt at the time. Remember that there were multiple possible outcomes that all seemed plausible. Remember the information you didn't have yet. Remember the doubts and questions you had. Don't let hindsight erase all that uncertainty and replace it with false clarity. Third, consider alternative outcomes. Even though you know what actually happened, imagine what else could have happened. If a business failed, imagine scenarios where it succeeded. If a team lost, imagine how they could have won. This helps you see that the actual outcome wasn't as inevitable as it seems now. Lots of different things could have happened, and the one that did happen wasn't obviously going to be the one. Fourth, be humble about predictions. Accept that the future is genuinely hard to predict. Even experts are wrong constantly. Even careful analysis gets surprised by unexpected events. When you make predictions, remember they're just guesses based on incomplete information. And when outcomes surprise you, don't pretend you saw them coming. Be honest about being surprised. Fifth, separate outcome from process. Just because a decision led to a bad outcome doesn't mean it was a bad decision at the time, and just because something worked out doesn't mean it was smart. Evaluate past choices based on what you knew when you made them, not based on how they turned out. Good decisions can have bad outcomes because of bad luck. Bad decisions can have good outcomes because of good luck. Sixth, listen to your past self. If you made a choice that you now think was stupid, try to remember why you made it. What were you thinking? What information did you have? What were your options? Your past self wasn't necessarily dumb. Your past self was working with different information in a different context. Respect that instead of judging your past decisions with knowledge you didn't have yet. Seventh, watch out for simple stories. Hindsight bias loves simple explanations that make everything seem obvious. Real life is messy and complicated with tons of factors affecting every outcome. If your explanation of why something happened seems too clean and simple, you're probably falling for hindsight bias. The real reasons are probably more complex and harder to see clearly. Hindsight bias is one of the most common and most damaging biases humans have. It runs constantly in the background of your thinking, rewriting your memories, making the past seem clearer than it was, making you overconfident about the future, and preventing you from learning the right lessons from experience. Every time something happens, good or bad, big or small, your brain wants to make it seem predictable. Your brain wants to believe you saw it coming. Your brain wants a story where everything makes sense and leads logically to the outcome. But that's not how reality works. Reality is uncertain and surprising and full of unexpected twists. The past was just as uncertain as the future is now. You just can't see that anymore because you know how things turned out. This bias makes you too harsh on yourself when things go wrong, because you think you should have known better. It makes you too proud of yourself when things go right, because you think you predicted it. It makes you too judgmental of other people's mistakes because you think they should have seen problems coming. And it makes you overconfident about your ability to predict what will happen next. The next time something big happens and you catch yourself thinking, "I knew that would happen," stop and be honest. Did you really know? Did you write it down beforehand? Did you put money on it? Or are you just experiencing hindsight bias making the outcome seem more predictable than it actually was? Your memory is not a recording. It's a story your brain tells you, and that story changes based on what you know now. Understanding this doesn't make you smarter or better at predicting the future, but it does make you more honest with yourself about what you actually know versus what you just think you knew all along. Subscribe if you want to learn about more ways your memory is lying to you without you realizing it.